Hey, this is Rebecca coming to you live from the Austin area. So we are on a 7-week series over the last couple of months. We have been on a road of talking about starting, scaling, and growing your business. And if you missed weeks 1 through 6, they are available on my website at rebeccacontreras.com. All of the content I provide is free on my website. There are a lot of resources out there for you and series that I've done. This business series I decided to do in the spring of 2024. We started in about mid-April, and we've been going for the last 10 weeks. And today is actually our last week, and I'll be focusing today, week 7, on what I call the essential evaluation and necessary pivot of what it means to be in business. But before I do that, I want to just recap for you. Week 1, we talked about that reinvention process from employee to entrepreneur and how to reinvent. Week 2, we talked about knowledge is power, and we discussed acquiring what I call the fundamentals in business as you begin to start your business or scale your business, those important things you need to know. Week 3, we discussed super important strategy of partnering or going solo, what makes the most sense for you. I've shared my personal experiences of why I elected to partner and the benefits that came with that. Week 4, we talked about the brand and the network and the importance of having a brand, understanding what your brand is, scaling the brand, and leveraging the network to grow your business. Week 5, we covered the one-on-ones of establishing your business plan. I gave a lot of really good insights on my personal experience, as well as ways that you could prepare a business plan with so many great AI tools these days to help you, and tools online. And then last week, we talked about something near and dear to my heart, what I call the right people matter. And that series was 30 minutes. It was super essential around the power of having the right people around you as a CEO, and how important it is to engage the right people in your business to deploy. We talked about the cradle to grave process of recruiting the right people, retaining them, and deploying them to execute in your business. So if you missed weeks 1 through 6, they are available on rebeccacontreras.com under the resource link. If you do go to the page, make sure to subscribe to stay in touch and get all the free resources that I provide on the website, and to stay in touch with me. I'd love to hear from you to see how this series has benefited from you. You can shoot me an email from that page under the contact link, and make sure you stay in touch. Okay. So today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, and honestly, every topic we've covered is really good and is in my top 10 of essentials to do in business. This one is around evaluating and measuring your success, and what I call a necessary pivot to being an entrepreneur. I will start out by saying, if you don't like change, and you don't like to move fast, and you don't like to pivot, you'll have a little bit of a challenge in business as an entrepreneur, because many business owners, and I know many of you can resonate with what I'm going to say, it takes a lot to start a business, grow a business, scale, and it takes a lot of change and moving in what I call an agile way, swift pivot to make changes when you have to make changes in order to be successful. And so if you don't like change and you don't like pivot, it might be a little bit of a challenge, but you can stretch yourself and learn how to embrace change. I remember when I started my business 13 years ago, I'm a very consistent person. I like to dot my I's, cross my T's. I like black and white. I didn't do well in the gray. And I've learned over the past 13 years how to pivot, how to be agile, and how to do okay in the gray, because you don't always know what you don't know, and what you are doing doesn't always work. And sometimes you've got to act very quickly as a CEO and make changes that impact your team or your product very quickly, so that those things don't linger. And I've learned and adapted that strategy of pivot as a CEO now. So continual learning, continual evaluation is important, and it's necessary as you run your business. The evaluation process of success is kind of an essential skill. Look at what's working, what's not working. Is it bringing in money? I had a conversation. I've been mentoring some small business owners over the course of the last 10 years. And through the process, I've met a lot of small business owners. And I remember a conversation I had with one in particular where, you know, she had been in business a lot of years. And I said to her, what's your profit and what are you making? And she said, well, I'm making X, you know, millions a year. And I said, but what's your profit? She said, well, I'm not sure I know what my profit is. I'm paying myself. And I said to her, I said, paying your salary is not profit. You have to evaluate your profit. Paying your salary to be the CEO, if you have the ability to do that and you're blessed where you're ramping up and you have enough revenue to pay yourself, that's part of salaries and expenses. But you really need to look at profit. What is your profit after you pay your expenses? And she kind of looked at me a little odd and didn't seem to resonate with what I was saying. And I said to her, do you have a normal cycle of evaluating your books and evaluating your revenue and your financials, what you're spending, what you're making? She said, well, no, not really. I'm still learning all that. And she's been in business almost 6 years. So I very gracefully cautioned her to set up a process for evaluating and making sure that she is knowing exactly what she's doing and evaluating her success through various lenses and also metrics. And so it's important. Data will keep you alive. Data will help you thrive. Data will help you measure. If you don't have data or the way to get the data, you will struggle in terms of evaluating the business. So it's a discipline as an entrepreneur, that evaluation cycle and that review cycle. It's not just for you to do on your own, but it's, you know, make sure you're engaging a spouse, a confidant, a coach, a mentor, somebody that you can run things by so that you're not just looking at that lens by yourself. I think sometimes we get so immersed in delivering our business and then trying to make things happen that we can't see and look up strategically. And so sometimes engaging somebody else to help you is a good strategy to have. So I like to say I'm a consultant. My business is consulting, and I've been consulting for almost 20 years now. And my sort of fundamental around evaluation is setting clear metrics. So if you don't have clear metrics, because you don't know what you're evaluating, how can you evaluate if you don't know what you're evaluating, right? So I like to set clear metrics. I would recommend, I have numerous ones, but I would recommend if you haven't started the evaluation process that you set maybe 2 or 3 and measure those. But I'll tell you what mine are. First of all, you have to set a cycle for evaluation. You can evaluate once a quarter at minimum. You can evaluate biannually, twice a year. Do not wait till the end of the year when you close out your books to evaluate how you're doing, because then it'll be too late to make any pivots or changes you need to make in the year in order to turn things around. And so, you know, I was talking to another business owner a few months ago, and she does an end of the year evaluation after she gets all her books and her taxes and everything. And she looks up and goes, oh my gosh, I didn't make any money this year. But she didn't know until the end of the year. And so it's important for you to know what you're doing, what revenue you're producing, how you're serving your customers. So my metrics, I have several key metrics that I use that I want to share with you in evaluation. Number 1, I evaluate number of customers served. Who are you serving? Are they buying your product? Are they buying your service? Who are you serving? And you want to be very clear around who that is and have that metric outlined. And you can, by the way, if you're new in business, you can use an Excel spreadsheet to pull this together. If you don't know Excel, take a class. I was horrible at Excel. Now I'm a whiz at Excel. There are a lot of free Excel courses online that you can take to get the basics of Excel. So you want to set up some columns and some formulas and some pivot tables to really get in there and put your evaluation metrics in there. So number of customers served is something I evaluate. I evaluate revenue closed each quarter. I want to know each quarter, what did we close this year? I want to know not only what was paid out, but what we have outstanding. If there are customers that haven't paid us, the aging process for those books. Are they 30 days late? Are they 60 days late? Are they 90 days late? Why are they late? So I evaluate that metric. I evaluate expenses. I evaluate what we bring in, what we put out. You can set up in QuickBooks a very simple profit and loss statement that shows you all your P&L, what you're making, what you're losing, and where you have your expenses. And I can tell you right now, the smallest of companies should be using at minimum QuickBooks, if not another financial software. I have multiple companies. The larger company is still very much a small business, but it's 100+ employees. We use QuickBooks for that, and we have a very robust formula process in there, and you know, buckets set up for tracking all the expenses, and it's a little more fancy in terms of the level up of QuickBooks. But I also have, for example, for my book and thought leadership work under Rebecca Coutures LLC, it's where the book sales run through, and for that company, it's still very small. It's just a part-time gig that I set up just to have the book and thought leadership work run through there. I still use QuickBooks for that. I actually have everything in QuickBooks and have an accounting firm that I pay on an hourly basis to manage those QuickBooks. So I'm able to see everything that's going out, everything that's coming in. You have to be evaluating your books at least once a quarter. Another metric I like to measure is customer retention and customer expansion. So you want to measure which customers are you keeping, which customers are you expanding, are they coming back, are they growing, are you growing an account? Right now we have about 15 what I would say large customers, and within those 15 customers we might have sub-customers. So for instance, if we're working for the Department of Agriculture, within that department we might have 2 or 3 agencies we serve. If you're working for Dell, maybe you have, you know, multiple divisions within Dell that you're serving. Whoever you are serving, you want to measure customer retention and customer expansion. Are they coming back for more? What's that cycle of where you're seeing customers either buy your product or buy your service? And another metric is how many hits are we getting on the website? Are people coming to our website as we do our social media promotions? We're on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook. Avant-Garde has very active social media. I have my head of our website now, because remember, we've grown, so I'm able to have, thankfully, the blessing of the luxury of having these employees. But I ask him, what are our hits the last quarter? You know, how many people visited the website to learn about our company, Avant-Garde? And he gives me very clear metrics through metrics he tracks. You know, what are the hires? What are the terminations? What are the recruitment actions that you've triggered the last quarter? As a small business, if you're still very small or you're just starting, you can track all these metrics and you can make sure you put them in there. So you want to start with 2 to 3 metrics, something that's simple, that's not too onerous for you to keep up with, so that you can track your metrics. So establishing a cycle for when you're evaluating, if it's going to be a quarter or every biannual, establishing the metrics. What are you evaluating? Start with 2 or 3 and then expand those. And then another important factor is what I like to call best practices. You want to look at other businesses, other industry partners, people that are with you and have similar businesses that you have, and you want to look at what they're doing. How are they growing their customer base? What services are they offering? And I call that best practices, and incorporating those best practices into your evaluation process so that you have sort of a line of sight to that best practice in your company, and you know that there are best practices out there. I can tell you there's a wealth of information that I utilize online or through AI that is a best practice view that you can incorporate into your evaluation process. So my philosophy is, what you can't manage what you don't measure. So you can't manage what you don't measure. And this applies not only in business, but it applies to your everyday life. You know, you need to be evaluating and looking at, you know, where you're spending your time, you know, who you're pouring into, you know, the relationships that you're involved in. All those things roll up to ensuring that you're living your best life and you're being most effective with who you are and who God has placed you to be on this earth. But in business, definitely, you absolutely cannot manage what you don't measure, and it's essential. So those are some basic metrics that I use in evaluating your business. I want to talk quickly about the pivot and what that means as a business owner, and I want to give you an example of where I've had to make a pivot. You know, when I first started Avant-Garde, I was CEO, I was founder, I was salesperson, I was when we closed our first contract at month 4 of the business, I was the facilitator, I was the strategist, I was actually, you know, boots on the ground serving our clients, and I continued to do that because I was by myself at the time with my partner, and you know, you have to do what you have to do to grow your business. And so when I hired my first employee, was super thrilled about that. And I still had to be there with the client and delivering because I was, kind of the lead face for the contract. And, I continued like that as I grew and scaled. I ended up hiring more and more people. But I will tell you, I would say about month 6 into the company. So I started in April of 2011. Or wait a minute, in April 2011. When in month 6, I looked up and all of a sudden I was spending all my time delivering and not selling and not strategizing and not strategically focused on the company. And I did it because I'm a practitioner. I love what I do. My expertise is in people. It's in human capital management. It's in strategy. It's in HR and organizational change. And I am known in the industry for that headset. And so I thought, well, wow, people are hiring my company because they need me at the table. And they would say, we want you on the project. And it was very hard to turn that away and to begin to delegate and to say, I'm not going to be available for you, but I promise you, I'm going to assign to you the best and smartest consultant on your team. And, early on, clients hemmed and hawed and no, we want you and we hired Avant-Garde because of you. Well, eventually clients know that you have to, scale back and you can't do everything, and you cannot be owners and CEOs and founders. You cannot be all things to all people. You will burn out very quickly and work 12-hour days, and all of a sudden you look up and your life is gone. So one of the pivots I had to make in about month 6 of my starting Avant-Garde is I had to learn to delegate, and I had to invest in a project manager. Now, not all the clients, if you're in consulting like I am, not all the clients are going to want to pay for overhead and what I call management. So I had to bite the bullet and say, okay, I've got this contract. We've got to do X, Y, Z on it. I'm going to hire a project manager and invest my own resources in the company to ensure that manager can manage and can deliver. And, pulling up as a CEO to focus on strategy and growth, and stepping in when I'm needed to solve a problem, to mitigate an issue, to deal with the blow up, to focus on strategy. That was really my role that I wanted to play ultimately. And so I had to do that very quickly in month 6. I will tell you, from month 6 to now, it has been a huge beneficial strategy, and it has paid back in many dividends time over in my time, because now, and over the last, I would say 12 years in particular, I've been able to hire good project managers. We have a team. I have 4 senior managers that are kind of like executive level, and then about 8 to 10 project managers that actually are boots on the ground. And that strategy of pulling up and hiring the right people as I grew in little bitty contracts, right? I started small. As I did that, then I got to sell and do and represent more and more, and my company scaled and grew. Had I said, oh gosh, I don't want to because my customers want me, or I really want to be close to the customer because it's, I need to be close. And had I honed in to kind of be on that contract and not pull up and focus on growth and strategy and issues and mitigating problems, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I can't tell you how many times I talk to owners. Women are the worst of this, by the way. we're superpowers. We like to do everything. We like to take the bull by the horns and make things happen. And sometimes that leads to us getting caught up in doing everything and being all things to all people. And it is not a strategy for growth. It is a strategy for remaining the same or crashing. So don't set yourself up for success, and pivot so that you can make sure that you are growing, even if it means investing in those leaders to help manage things for you. So we talked about the importance of evaluation and metrics. I gave you 3 or 4 key metrics you can measure. I talked about the important cyclical process of evaluating. Set a stake in the ground during the year. You're going to evaluate once a quarter, once every 6 months, certainly not at the end of the year. Make sure you do that evaluation. Engage someone. And I want to leave you with action steps as we close. I want to make sure you know and have some clear action steps around this issue of evaluation and pivot. Number 1, very first thing to do is define what success means for you in the evaluation process. What does it look like in year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, year 10? What does it look like? And make sure you have that clear line of sight. You don't want to guess. You don't want to try to figure out, well, geez, what is it that I'm going to evaluate this quarter? And you want to stay consistent. Don't be changing your evaluation strategy every 3 months. Certainly pivot and make changes that are necessary, but try to have that consistency. Number 2, set a regular cycle for evaluation. Number 3, set 3 to 5. I call them the critical few. Don't try to do it all because then you won't track everything. Set 3 to 5 clear metrics that you can set up for evaluation using tools like Excel or other software programs that are out there. If you can afford to purchase a software program that will help you track those metrics. Number 3, research best practices, utilize AI and ChatGPT and research and online and all the wonderful things that are available to you so that you can have a best practice in mind, or best practices as you do your evaluation. Number 4, engage a coach, a partner, an expert, somebody that knows and has been there before you, and they can provide that insight so that you are engaging them in meaningful partnership, and you're running ideas by people, because we don't know. Sometimes we're so buried in the minutia of our work that we can't look up and we can't stop and think about what it means for us. And when you engage someone who's a partner, a coach, a mentor, an expert, they will help you really hone in on whether or not you're evaluating the right things. And lastly, probably most importantly, and definitely not the least, is make sure you pivot and you create that shift. Do not wait. I always find it so tragic when I find businesses that have to shut down, and you kind of look under the hood and find out what was it that that happened, and it's either a bad partnership or it's lack of a finances. Most of businesses fail because of lack of finances. In week 1, I talked about the number of businesses out there in America that are startup, and there's a 70% failure rate on those businesses. And I gave kind of the top 5 reasons why businesses fail. But it's so sad for me when I hear a business failed because they didn't have an evaluation process and they just didn't know. They weren't looking at under the hood of what they were doing and then moving very quickly to change. And put a plan in place in order to not have that failure. And sometimes you can have the failure. Listen, I have failed many times over. You're going to fail in business, so I'm not talking about not failing, because sometimes you fail forward. As John Maxwell says, it's a good strategy to look at failing forward, and failure lends to a lot of insights you can learn from later. I'm talking about purposely not evaluating what you're doing that then leads to a blow up or a disaster or a failure. So you want to evaluate and you want to pivot. One of the most important skills that you must be good at as an entrepreneur is the pivot, and that actually merits an entire series just on itself. So anyway, I wanted to come and wrap up this week 7 of this RC business series with the evaluation and the pivot. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. I want to encourage you, if you missed weeks 1 through 6, all of these series, the 7 series that I did, they're 20 to 30 minutes long, very, very easy to listen to. They're all based on my experience. I don't have any scientific method. I'm not a proven, PhD that has studied, business concepts and business this and that. I am an actual practitioner. I've been there, done that. I'm doing that. And I wish somebody had shared with me and I had been able to glean from these 7 topics so early on in my business. I think I could have avoided a lot of hiccups and mistakes had I known what I don't know. But knowledge is power. Remember what I said, and you only know what you can listen to and what you are open to learn, and you can only manage what you measure. So make sure, if you've enjoyed this series, I'm going to ask you to connect with me and subscribe at RebeccaContreras.com. Share the series out on your social media. It is free. It's content that is available to anybody and anybody who wants it. And I have so enjoyed being with you these last weeks here in 2024 to talk about the fundamentals of business. And thank you so much for listening and watching, and wishing everybody Godspeed in their business. Let's go ahead and kill it for 2024. See you next time.